Welcome to another episode of Mavericks, where we speak to the Mavericks of business in South Africa from all walks of life and all different kinds of business. We're going to be speaking to three business partners who are actually still friends after 30 years in the business, the owners and founders of a business called Legacy Pet Crematorium, as well as IdentiPet, and some of their new ventures that they are planning to engage in. It's our biggest podcast to date with three guests. Starting from this side of me, Dean Webb, Finance and Compliance from Legacy Pet Crematorium, Mark Slaughter, the Marketing and Sales Brains, and Dave Oxenham from Operations. And I'm glad that I got your name right because, it's one of those things. Interesting names that you have for a business, Legacy Pet Crematorium, Oxenham, Slaughter. We'll get into that maybe. But I want to cast your minds back to 1991. You're at Stellenbosch University. You've met for the first time and you decide, A, we're going to be friends, and B, we're going to start a business. Take us through a little bit of that story. Dean, let's start with you first. How did that come about?
So I'll speak about my first recollections of these two fine gentlemen. I remember meeting Dave in a pub called Finley's, 1991, first year at Stellenbosch University. And friendship grew from there. And Mark, I remember on our first trip back from Stellenbosch to Joburg on a bus in the middle of the night, somewhere between Cape Town and Joburg, he asked me if I could please look after his bags while he went and got some smokes. So very auspicious beginnings, but that's kind of where it started, and it really did start with friendship, yeah.
But it's a big step to go from being friends to becoming business partners. How did that transpire?
Yeah, like I said, I think when I think about it retrospectively, I think that's the way it should happen. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. Anyone I speak to about business, I say you should do it in a team because you need multi-gifts to do it. And I think we had a very productive friendship. And what I mean by that, we weren't like these needy friends of each other. Like we enjoyed one another. We fed off one another's differences, and which at university looked like something. But the reality, there was a good connection. Our hearts were aligned. We'd come from very similar backgrounds, and we just had a lot of fun together. And as I've seen that in business, we've likewise the differences have been benefits, not. And so I believe in it. I believe in doing stuff in a team. I believe in doing stuff where your hearts are aligned, and if you can find a good idea, it can work, and it can work well.
One of the things about teamwork is having very clearly defined roles. How did you end up, Dave, you are the COO or the operations manager, or whatever your correct title is. Forgive me for not getting that right. Mark, marketing and sales, and Dean, finance and compliance. How did you make that decision that this was going to be the way that you set up your team?
I think that was more just fortuitous than anything. We just, as I said, the basis of our relationship was the friendship. We just happened to be gifted in different areas, and that worked well in the business that we pursued. But our friendships weren't based on our business strengths. They were based on just a connection. When I met Mark, he was a skinny little oak with a big cape. Can you believe it? So
that's a good hairstyle you've got going now.
Yeah,
you're rocking it.
Things have changed remarkably since then. But it was just a friendship connection that we had a lot in common. As Mark says, we came from similar backgrounds, sort of more on the rural plots, on the sort of edges of Joburg. And we just valued the same things. We value loyalty, honesty, integrity, and that we brought into our business. So it's never been a question. It's been, some things you don't need to think about, they come naturally, and that seems to happen between the three of us.
Mark, you were saying friendship and a good idea is the basis for how your business has grown. There's surely just a little bit more to it than that. I mean, how do you take friendship and a good idea and build a business that's now almost 30 years old?
I think a time and chance is a reality. I mean, just to be in the right place, right time. Like we were definitely in the right place at the right time. Dave had an idea at Stellenbosch. He said his stepfather was involved with medical waste, and he said that the Joburg City Council had an issue with the dumping of animal carcasses, or actually incinerating animal carcasses. And then at the same time, there was a an article, a guy in Edenvale that found his dog lying on the dump that had been put down a week before, and that made headlines. And off the back of those two things at Stellenbosch, we went to the vets and said, well, what about a professionally administered pet crematorium where you can look the client in the eye and tell them that, we've got a company that takes care of your, at that stage, beloved pet. Now it's like almost like your child, it's a part of the family. But there's an environmental aspect to it that, like, no one, just environmentally, animals on dumps is not great. And there's certainly an emotive issue with it. People don't want, that's just not the right thing to do with someone that's quite cherished, an animal that's quite cherished. So the business idea was strong, but like we've often said, you do need, like, we still had to make it happen. And still, when I look back in time, the most profound moment for me, 4 hours, was when we went and one of Dean's family friends said she'd heard that we were going to business together. 3 mates going to business. That's a recipe potential for disaster. Can I have 4 hours? And she asked us to share our vision. And then she said, we need to share our strengths and weaknesses. And we'd been traveling in a camper van around Europe. We'd been at varsity together. We bantered a lot, and we were not about to like really celebrate our strengths.
We knew each other's strengths and weaknesses very well by then.
Our weaknesses columns were so long, but and I look at that and I shake my head. But the reality is, then it was quite clear. Dave, you take care of operations, Dean, you do compliance, finance, and then I
did it match with what you studied at varsity? I mean, did that help at all? I mean, I'm presuming you've got a business degree. Yeah.
All three of us.
All three of you. Okay. So then you still have to assign roles.
Well, we didn't know what else to do, so we just did a BCom, a business, because we weren't about to be lawyers, doctors, accountants. So we were lucky. I think it's a good degree to get as a broad basis for what we started to do.
Yeah.
But
I think the stuff that we studied helped. But I think there's also something within each one of us. We all had fairly entrepreneurial dads. And like it just seemed like a good idea, 22, 23, 24 years old. And if we fail, well, we're young enough to bounce back. We don't have too much family responsibility, financial responsibility. But not everyone will do that, eh?
It's an interesting thing, I mean, if I look back on my own decisions about what I studied, I come from a family where my father expected me to be a doctor. Listening to what you said, you didn't want to be a lawyer, doctor, that didn't happen. I didn't study a business degree. And there might be many people who are out there thinking, I've got a great idea, I've got great mates, we can make this happen. Do I need to have a degree to actually make a success of my business? Is that a fundamental need for entrepreneurship?
I'm not sure it is. There are many stories of people who've made it who didn't have degrees. I certainly think it does help. Like for me, my majors were commercial law and economics, and with some finance. And so I think that's helped me to understand how the theory works, but you only really understand it when you get your hands dirty in a proper functioning business. Yeah. And sorry, so I think, it's always advisable to have someone who's strong in finance, for example, but I don't think it's a prerequisite for a successful business to have a degree.
One of the things you mentioned, which I really liked though, Mark, is that you had somebody who spotted a potential pitfall for 3 guys who've just come out of varsity, just gotten out of a camper van from Europe, and took the time out to spend time figuring out what were the right things for business. Things might have gone completely differently if you didn't have that, right?
Yeah, I really, like, when I look back in time, if I look back in my life now, you think that was definitely a moment in time. That is just profound. We might have just stepped into it anyway, naturally, but it did happen, and it did. And she said some pearlers, like don't overlap, and even because this is the thing. It's not the fact that I do marketing and the fact that Dave does operations doesn't mean that when we come to the vision, we don't all overlap in that sense of shaping the vision, because the vision is shaped through the way we think. And whether I think, here's the dream, that's what the market's saying. Dave thinks, but he thinks practically, he thinks systematically. But it doesn't mean that Dave came up with the name for our business, Legacy. You'd think the marketing guy comes up with it. That was Dave. So we 100% feed into the vision together. But when the responsibility for outworking does align with your gift mix, that definitely. Dean, as much as Dean likes marketing, he does, and has got good marketing ideas, but he is attention to detail. And you need that in a business. And play to the strengths, yeah. So I can't remember your question, but anyway.
Well, it was a good answer. For businesses in the early startup phase, how important is it to have mentors and people who understand what you're doing? Because you've mentioned similarity of backgrounds, you grew up in similar areas, but the thing that interests me the most is that you had entrepreneurial parents, whom I presume were your early mentors. But the question is more general than that. Is that how important is it for businesses to have a mentor in the early phase?
Yeah, James, I'm glad you asked that. I was thinking while you were talking to Mark that more than a business degree, if you've got your family supporting you, I think that's more important. Whether it's financially or just emotionally, to have that support and that backing is really important. That's what we had. We knew that let's give it a go, and if we failed, we failed, but we'd still have the backing of our families. That did help us initially with a bit of finance, because at that stage, no bank was going to bankroll 3 semi-drunkard students. So we relied heavily on our families, and that we drew great strength from that. And as Dean alluded to, the fact that our parents were all entrepreneurial, and they didn't sort of pigeonhole us into a specific career path helped a lot. So we always were very comforted by the fact that if it didn't work, we would still have their support. And obviously living at home, keeping your costs down, just practically, that also was a big help.
So they were entrepreneurial, but I do want to go back to that first conversation that you had with your parents, collectively or individually, where you said to them, guys, this is our great business idea. We're going to, well, it was a medical waste to start, but I mean, this idea of now we're going to change it into a pet crematorium. How did that conversation go? Was it an easy one? Did they go, hang on a sec?
Yeah, I'm casting my mind back to that evening, and fortunately, I had a very maverick-like father who had done a few risky business things of his own in his life. So he didn't really bat too much of an eyelid. My mother, on the other hand, was like, really, but then very quickly got to being very supportive. So yeah, I think our parents were all very supportive, surprisingly. But
you're obviously very confident in your pitch to them, I guess.
Yeah,
it's a different story when it comes to your wives and partners. I mean, that must be a more difficult conversation to have, to get them on board to support what you're doing. Has that been an easy road?
Yeah, I don't even know. That could be a real rabbit trail. I think the best way to answer that is I got married late. So it was already successful. But
let's go back to before wives.
So before wives, so I do think, no, but listen, I do think that it was a benefit not to have a huge amount of responsibility to start a business. So if I'm talking to an entrepreneur, and if you don't have massive debt and you're not kids and school fees, like that is a great time to start a business. So the sooner with you do that, the better. We could still stay at home. Our costs were low, so we could run lean for a while, and while it establishes. I do think that as you grow in business, your communication with your wife. I mean, so we had an opportunity for a private equity buy-in, and it was interesting. The guy said to us, "Get your wives on the table here," because
not on the table, around the table.
Around the table. They said, because when you get a private equity partner, it does become about rands and cents, and it's, are you performing? And suddenly you can lose the joy of, it becomes more pressured. So I think those conversations are massively important.
I have to agree with you there. I mean, I started my business just before we got married, and I literally started the business. And if my wife had not been on board, it would have been a completely different. You got married when you were successful. Great thing. I mean, you've at least got something to show for it. But to have that support when you're starting out, of not only your parents and your family, but also your significant other, I think plays into the success of how a business goes. So I think that's great. It's still one of those things where you've talked about private equity partners, you've talked about your folks supporting the idea. But was there a moment where you get the money to start the business, and then you suddenly think, jeepers, okay, we've got to make this happen now. People have stumped up quite a bit of cash for us to make this happen. Was there fear in what you were doing, or was it just that young, confident brashness? As you said, it didn't matter if you failed. I think you were saying that, Dave, but it didn't matter if you failed, but you went for it. Was there ever a moment where you were thinking, maybe we've chosen the wrong path?
There was a moment. There was a very precise moment that I remember. It wasn't like I thought it couldn't work, because we knew that there was a need for a pet crematorium. We chatted to a few vets in Joburg. But I remember one day very clearly where we had 2 vehicles. We had 1 employee. For 3 years, we drove around and we fetched dead pets from the vets around Johannesburg, probably around 20 vets. Started with 5, went up to 20. But we got back that day. I'd collected no pets. Mark got back, he'd collected 1 pet. And in those days, for a communal cremation, we charged 40 Rand. And if you used us exclusively for all of our services, we gave you a 10% discount. So our turnover for that day was 36 Rand. And I remember getting back and sitting under a tree and having a quiet conversation to myself, wondering, what the heck are we doing? But I got up the next day and we did it again. And
but that's almost the story of every entrepreneur that I've spoken to, is that even when things look pretty bleak like that, where your turnover is 36 Rand for one day, that you've got to get up and make it happen, because that's what you've decided to do.
Yeah.
What's that thing that makes you get up in the morning?
David?
The hospital pass. David, let me shift to you then, Dave. What's that thing that gets you up in the
it's an
morning?
easy answer. I love what I do. I love the people I work with. I honestly do. So our staff are family, to be honest. I mean, that's my job. I mean, I work with the staff every day with the vehicles and machines, but I really, really enjoy connecting and working and leading and training. I enjoy the responsibility. I mean, I take it very seriously. I understand that the people we work with have families. Their families depend on their breadwinners, and that's my responsibility. I've got to make good decisions. The decisions I make impact them and their families, whether they potentially can educate their kids. And I really take it seriously, and I get
Does that
great
ever give
joy.
you sleepless nights, that you're responsible for other people's lives?
It doesn't, to be honest. I've got great faith in our team, great faith in our leadership, and great faith in the people we work with. So I don't know, I'm naive or not, but I enjoy the responsibility. I enjoy the leadership position, and I enjoy the people I work with. And I think a great advantage for us is that we started the business ourselves. So there's nothing that gets done today that we didn't do ourselves. So I've driven every kilometer that every driver drives. I've been to every clinic. I've done everything. So I've never asked anyone to do anything that I haven't done myself. So that's a great position to be in from a leader perspective. And then also from a control perspective. I know if things aren't quite as they should be because I've been in that position. So yeah, I love our job. I love the challenge, and I love the opportunities that are in the space of pets and pet parents.
It's an interesting thing. I mean, you were talking earlier on, Mark, about this idea of pets being an essential part of families. Back in '96, when you started the business, I mean, this was a very different kind of conversation. People love their pets. I mean, that hasn't changed. But now in 2025, we're kind of a society that values our pets almost at the level of human beings. They are, I think, I'm sure you would say most of your clients see them as part of the family. They are another family member.
Yeah. So just to tee you up, like in '96, we said pets are like family.
Okay.
Today we say pets are family.
That's such an interesting shift in the way that we perceive the value of essentially animals. And depending on your, I guess, worldview, that's quite an interesting perspective to have. Have you ever had moments where you have sat down and thought, why are we doing this for animals, and perhaps rather than, say, human beings, for example? I mean, maybe that's oversimplifying the question, but, have you responded to the needs of society, or have you defined the way that people see
So I'm glad that I did play that hospital pass to Dave initially, because I do want to say that often in the beginning days when we said, why do we do it? I would say, well, it's not so much about the business. It's the fact that I'm doing something that's successful with my best mates, and it was built around a friendship. It was built around love. And I honestly think that is still, it is the recipe. That is the secret sauce. But I've had to really ask myself, what is the why? Obviously Simon Sinek's got that stuff. What are we doing? And I've had to align it with my worldview, because I've had to say, I've had to align it with a Christian worldview. Like, what is my calling? Is this my calling? And then I've had to think deeply about that and to align it with my worldview. And part of that is saying pets are not humans. They're not humans. That's the first distinction we make, because there are literally people that will, I think, try and humanize a pet, which then that's a line that crossing that we think is not right. But they are 100% something we should steward well and do it well. And so we've now together come up with a vision to build a nation of responsible and rewarded pet owners. And my sense is that if we can help you look after your pet well, you feel well. If you know you're being responsible and look after your pet, you feel well. You actually feel better because you're doing something good. And whether it be that we enable people to grieve well at the loss of their pet, or through Identity Pet, that they've done the responsible thing by putting a microchip so that if it does get lost, you give your pet a voice. We are now helping you become a responsible and rewarded pet owner. So yeah, our vision is certainly said pets are part of the family. They are an amazing gift that have a very real impact on you personally. Like there's genuine chemistry that happens with petting. There's so much research into that, and we have embraced that research. We know that research. We like that. So we enjoy the reality of creating services that enable people to look after their pets better. We've also realized that vets themselves are a huge part of this, and they've paid the price. If they, in terms of the ability to manage and know more about pets, I mean, they are the people that know most about pets, know how we should look after them better well, and they've got a very unique skill and occupation. We've realized that they also need support. So there's a lot of our businesses now is aligned in supporting vets.
We're going to get into how the business is developing in a minute, but I want to just dwell on this just for a little bit longer, in the sense that it seems that from what you've said that there's actually an extension beyond pets, which are important, and it's a much easier conversation to have in 2025 where people are more connected to their animals and whatever. But there's an environmental impact that you are making, in the sense that these are not animals that are left on a dump. And you've mentioned vets, is that there is a human element, and also the pet owners. So has that something that has evolved in terms of your thinking, or did you have a very clear idea in the beginning that there was this distinction?
Listen, it's been a proper evolution, progression, whatever you want to call it. I think in the early days we were trying to solve a problem of keeping dead animals off landfills. And as we've all had our journey as we've gone on to realize that we've actually inadvertently being landed, given, afforded the opportunity to be in a space where, like, to redeem an industry, like to use Simon Sinek's language, we've got a just cause, which we've only discovered in the last couple of years, And so that just cause is to make a nation of responsible and rewarded pet owners, and also to assist the vets to focus on what they do and have service providers like ourselves that they can, be proud of and want to associate with. So yeah, we increasingly becoming aware and getting educated on the fact that pets are a proper gift to society, and that they are therapeutic in many ways. And it's right to care for them, especially the fact as well that they only live for between 10 and 15 years, So let's give them the best. Why would we not give them the best? They bring so much joy to our lives. And so, yeah, we've stumbled across that.
It's great that a business, that one can evolve in a business to almost create the thing that defines what you do. I think the ability to do that in a business is an important thing. But it does make me think, it's a question I probably should have asked first, is do you guys have pets? And if so, what do you have? Because I'm sure their listeners are going, hang on a sec, we're talking about pet. Do these guys actually own pets? Have they gone through this? Dave?
Definitely, yeah. Pets have been part of my life from day one. As I say, we grew up sort of on the outskirts of Joburg on a big plot. We had 6 or 7 dogs, a couple of cats. Yeah, a very important part of my journey. And then obviously with children, I think that child-pet bond is enormously beneficial for a child. I think it's just it adds a whole new dimension to their life, and it's a great addition to a family. So definitely pets are part of my family.
Cool. You got pets?
I've got 3 dogs, 2 cats. Yeah, I mean, my mini schnauzers is bonded with my one child, and the fox terrier was the other, and the cats belong to the girls, and so I've got 5 kids and 5 cats.
You've got a menagerie.
And then we've got a German short-haired pointer, which is like a child. I mean, if she could sleep in my bed, she would.
Yeah.
And she tries it on. But yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah. How about you?
So these guys disagree that I've actually got dogs. We've got 2 Yorkies.
Well, yeah, that's questionable.
Called Sky and Dixie, and they're out for a walk at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it is an important thing if you've got a business like you do to at least walk the talk and have your own animals. And it's great to hear that, it's an essential part of your growing up and your life now. It is incredible to me how pets do form such an important part of our lives these days, and how we perhaps assign maybe too much value to them, but that's another discussion for another time. I want to talk about the growth of the business, because you're almost 30 years old. Next year, I think, is your 30th anniversary, but you haven't sat on your laurels. You set up the Pet Crematorium, Legacy Pet Crematorium, and then was it 2016 you decided to buy into another business, and you mentioned it briefly, this microchipping business, IdentiPet. What was the rationale behind that from a financial perspective?
So actually, we met a guy, Bruce Finnemore, who owned IdentiPet at one of the South African Veterinary Association conferences, and Dave was the guy that said that would be an interesting add-on to what we do, and we kind of scratched our heads and said, like, how do you see that? But being the operations guy, Dave would see animals landing at our crematorium, and the only reason they were young animals, was because they got lost and couldn't be reunited with their parents or owners. And so we thought, there's another problem to solve, and it would be a great opportunity for us to get involved with the early part of life, make sure that more pets in South Africa are identifiable through microchipping, so that if and when they go missing, and listen, I look at Four Ways Gardens here, for example, every day, and almost every day there's a pet that goes missing. So it's a real problem in the suburbs of South Africa. And so the thinking was, let us get into the microchipping game, help more pet parents to be united with their lost pets.
Do you think that's a danger, Dave, of any business that is successful? Because, I mean, you were growing and you were doing well. There was no sign at that stage, I guess, that the business was going to fail. Do you think it's a danger for any business that you rest on your laurels and think this is all we're going to be? Or do you think it's important for businesses to continue to adapt, to grow? We spoke about evolution, innovate, all of those sort of things. And was that a motivation to take on IdentiPet?
As Dean mentioned, I'm operations, so I saw at sort of ground level what was happening to pets, and it was really sad, to be honest. I mean, we were cremating pets that shouldn't need to be cremated. They were just not being reunited with their owners. So it was, to me, an opportunity to help improve a system that needed to be improved upon. And then from a business perspective, it just made good sense, because we were dealing with the veterinary doctors every day. IdentiPet is a product that gets dealt with the veterinary doctor. So from a business perspective, it's properly aligned, and then it also solved the problem. And I think, it's a bit of both. If you can solve a problem and work in the space that you're in, it's got a higher chance of success. And also, you need to be challenged, I think, to be honest. I think we the three of us like to be challenged. I don't think we'd ever sit still. I mean, we've made a few wrong turns with other businesses that haven't worked so well, but we don't stop trying.
And you're not stopping yet. You've got a new product that you're about to introduce into the market. Tell us just briefly what it is, what it's called, and what it's going to do.
Sure. Yeah, and I will try and be brief, but it really came from talking to vets about 10 years ago, and we were thinking to offer a grieving service, like a grief service for people struggling to cope with the loss of their pet. And then I went to one of the vets, and they said, but the people that needed the most counselling were the vets themselves. And I was surprised by that, as many people are, that the veterinary industry and being a vet is not an easy job at all. They're dealing with pets that can't speak, so your analysis of and diagnosis needs to be really pinpoint. And then they have this very unusual job where they euthanize people's family members. and honestly, and they're scientists essentially.
And
they're
the
really
procedure is
talented,
expensive as well.
and then the conversation they have most, and they generally very high IQ, yeah, but is a financial conversation because people think they're too expensive. So you imagine that is actually becomes a really difficult job. And vets had got all of us onto good food. The food guys had realized if you want to break into the market with a higher priced food, you need the experts to convince the people. So the vets had really done well with retail at selling foods. But like we see what's happening now, the food guys are selling everywhere. And so the vets are starting to lose income on something that they'd built. And again, that's the just cause. We enjoy our veterinary partners. We've always said that we've aligned with them, with Legacy and IdentiPet, and that our service would be an extension of theirs. And so we've said, what about using tech? And we've had some experience with tech, get some good tech skills and build a platform to leverage off their relationship with their clients and then sell food and insurance we've got and various vet online services. We've built some amazing subscription services that align with vets that they can now start marketing to their clients. And one of those is wellness as well. So tick flea dewormers, it's happening all over the world. Needs to really happen in South Africa now. But where we're going with the vision is literally to say and if I was talking to you, James, I'd say, can we manage your pet family for you through the vet? Your dog food arrives at your home, your tick and flea dewormers arrive, and we're using and the vet's benefiting from that. Mm-hmm. And I think it's an amazing vision, and so that's our next big story.
And again, it's a problem to solve. I think you talk to vets in South Africa today. 15 years ago, retail formed a big component of their revenue. Today, that's dwindling, and everyone's going online. Most vets know that they need to go online, but they don't have the resources, know-how, people, whatever, to do it. And so we're saying, well, how can we partner with you to help you to do that? And in the process, serve your pet owners better, and give them a chance at taking on some of the big online retailers.
And then, that's an entrepreneur's journey. It's seeing a problem and finding a solution for it. Do you get the feeling, though, that, oh my goodness, we're starting all over again? I know you mentioned, Dave, that you like the challenge of doing new things, but do you get a sense where new product we're launching into the market, we've got to go through this whole process of convincing people again and buying into our idea? Is that a frustration, or is it just like a motivator?
I think back of the early days of Legacy, that was one of the joys. Building something and seeing it happen before your very eyes is an amazing thing. It's more the grind of execution that keeps me awake at night and gives me grey hairs that you see on my head here. We don't mind climbing the mountains, but the how of climbing the mountain is where the friction comes.
I want to just come back to something you were saying earlier on, Mark, about the fact that you've seen this need for vets. And I can attest to that. We were potentially going to have to put down our pet recently within the last month or so, because it turns out he had a cancerous growth in his throat. And at the last minute, we decided not to. And what was interesting about the process is not so much the dog that has now got a second chance in life, but it's how relieved the vet was that he didn't have to go through that process that we were going to have to go through. It was emotional for my wife and myself. And it speaks somewhat to, I guess, coming back to this idea of worldview and how we run our businesses, or the choices that we make, is that it's not so much only about the pet, but it's about all the people that are involved in the process. It's the family. It's the vet that has to go through the stuff where they're losing revenue, where they're making difficult decisions and all of that sort of stuff. Do you think that that sort of innovation of being that innovative, or being that caring, rather, actually, that's the better way of putting it, or being that caring about having a holistic view of an industry, makes all the difference in how you grow your business?
Sure.
Sorry, that was a rather long-winded question to get to where I was getting to.
I think so. We read a book, again, Dave, there's a book we read called A Different Kind of Veterinarian, and really opened my eyes up to, and he started the first pet insurance in America, and the reason he started was because of economic euthanasia, exactly. So people come into the vet, they say, it's going to cost whatever, $2,000 to do this thing. They say, we don't have the money. And then what would happen is you'd have your child there and you'd have a little whispering conversation with the parent, and the next moment the dog's died, and he said, the child, I see them in the supermarket and the child hates me. And so he then had this relationship. He was quite a butch guy, had this butch dog, then he got this tiny, like one of Dean's dogs, and fell like he loved this dog. And he literally said there's science behind the chemistry. He got cancer and actually said he was healed. He honestly believes that his relationship with that dog healed him because of the chemical stuff that happened in his brain because he was petting it and just loving it. So
one of the chapters in his book was prescribe pets, not pills.
Yeah.
And he's got evidence of how that helps, you know.
So James, I mean, it comes down to me, is this, like Dave said, are we honest? Are we real? Like, I honestly believe that pets are a gift from God to us. And if we look after them well and we care better and we do things well, we genuinely feel better. I remember having a situation, I had a Labrador with a skin condition, kept on scratching. And every time I looked at it scratching, I thought, I did not feel well because I thought I'm not solving this dog's problem. And then it was a cost to send it bloods to America and get, then I thought, gee, I'm going to spend that money. But I felt bad that I wasn't spending the money. And so I honestly believe that if you don't look after anything well, and including yourself, you don't feel great. It's like real. That is a real story. And so do pets need to be looked after better? Do vets need a break? Yes, they do. Do more people need to understand that they shouldn't make the vet make hard decisions all the time, and the vet shouldn't make the call to euthanize your dog? You should, you know. Don't put all that stuff on a vet. But so yeah, I think it's there's genuine services that we are providing that help vets and help pet owners, and that we should care about them because they actually have a real impact on the environment and on people.
There's this idea that we've also latched onto in the last few years, which we didn't have at the beginning, of redeeming or enhancing an industry. So we didn't set out to do that. But the veterinary industry, like less than 20% of people in South Africa who own pets meaningfully engage with veterinary care. So like we want to help South Africans who own pets to do better for their pets. And in the process, help to enhance the veterinary industry in South Africa. Like that's not something that we set out to do, but that's when you ask the question about the holistic view and the just cause, that is what we're trying to do.
Redeeming is such an interesting word to use, and I'm sure that's informed by the worldview perhaps that you have expressed already, Mark. But I think I've completely lost my train of thought here. Yeah, fortunately, because this is recorded now, we can cut and pick it up. I think redeeming is such an interesting word to use. One of the things that strikes me, Dave, as your name keeps popping up when all of these new ideas keep emerging, with Vet Booster being the latest one. I want to speak a little bit to the idea of leadership and the three of you having to make decisions about how to grow a business. How have you made it work that can help other businesses who are in a startup phase, have got great crazy idea, got the grit, want to like make it happen? What are the lessons that you've learned about coming together to make an idea about how you grow the business and how you come up with that idea or how you make it a reality? What's that advice that you would give them, that you would say, this is the one thing I would recommend?
You can't get around hard work. I mean, that's a given. If you're going to get anything off the ground, you got to put your mind, body, and soul into it, and you've got to have the right support base to be able to do that. And that's a key element, I think. And then pick your partners carefully.
You can say that in retrospect. You didn't know that so many years ago.
No.
What about for you, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, this is my deep passion. I'm 100% convinced that we have found something. I mean, Raymond Ackerman would say this. He says business needs four things. It needs sales, it needs operations, it needs administration. His fourth leg of a table would be HR. I would put HR in the operations. But that's what you need. And they are different personalities. A salesperson should not be in an office. He is out there, she's out there, getting there in the market, hearing what the market needs, coming back. The operations person needs to be a line and length, disciplined, hard work. Can we actually do what we say we do? Like, it's a total different mindset. And then and administration is systematic. He thinks systematically. It's attention to detail. Those are three different personalities. And I reckon most entrepreneurs burn out if you're a one-man show, because you're trying to be at sales, you're trying to be the operations, so you need to be out there, but now you've got to be here. You need to be doing all your banking and getting your invoicing right, and you're sleeping too late at night. So, like, I'm 100% convinced, number one, that you need 3 different like mindsets and skills, and then and everyone says you are where you are because of the decisions you make, and we bring decisions through a gauntlet of vision. That's what the market's saying. Practical, like, can we actually do it? And when I say it's the way you think, so much as it's like, is this even practical? Like, because if you shape a product, but does that product actually make sense? Or would I buy it? It's not just can we do it? Does it make sense? And then, like, systematically, like, can we like join all the dots? And is it right for the business? And can we develop a system, because systems build capacity, that enable you to do it? So I think, and ultimately, one last thing, is that leadership is about building a culture of empowerment. And we do not have a big boss here. We submit to each other in love. And that then, for me, creates a culture of empowerment where the people that work for us also take ownership and do a great job, because it's not a top-down, like, I'm the boss. We eat with our staff. We love our staff. And we expect them to be responsible and make good decisions. We honor that, and we honor it to each other. So then we expect that to happen.
One of the things, before you give your piece of advice, one of the things that has come out in this conversation that is very clear about, certainly to me, that maybe one of the foundations of success is a lot of what Mark was talking about. You guys do your homework, right? There's a lot of research that goes into deciding whether something is actually going to work. Would you say that that's an important component for businesses to make sure, like, don't just have a good idea, make sure that you check the market, that you do your due diligence? Is that critical to running a business, or can you wing it?
I'm that guy. Okay. So I remember.
It's the right question to ask you.
I remember in the early days. I don't know if it was at university or early days of business or whatever. I read a thing: plan thrice, execute once. Okay.
Reminds me of a friend of mine's father who was building measure twice.
Yeah. So Mark is far more, and Dave are far more able to live with imperfection and not knowing the answers, where I'm the guy who's always trying to see around corners. Plan properly so that it makes your execution a lot less painful. And the number 3 seems to be popping up a bit, because on the leadership question, like, there's this thing, like, I think through the lens of priest, prophet, and king.
Right.
And
again, that speaks to your worldview, because that's not something that people in business might necessarily.
So the finance guy, the compliance guy tends to be the king. The marketing and sales visionary dreamer tends to be the prophet, and the guy who engages a lot with the staff and does the operations is the priest. And like, we are that. And it's worked well. So if you ask any one of us, who's the CEO?
Yeah.
I think you'll get the same answer.
Yeah.
We don't know.
It's an interesting thing. I mean, having a faith-based business, or a business that is informed by your faith, could be seen to be a hindrance or a help. What do you say, Dave? Do you agree with it?
It's probably, I'd say, more a help than a hindrance. I suppose your faith it informs your decision-making process and things. But I think if just honesty amongst one another is important. I mean, you don't have to all be of the same faith or the same strength of faith, but I think as long as you know where each stands and you've communicated that clearly and you respect each other, I think it works well.
I think that's the key thing in any business, beyond the question of faith, is respecting one another's skills, strengths, decisions, and just, I guess, personhood. Maybe that's the wrong word, but respect is a key thing in business. I want to come back to something you said, Mark, about, and actually you mentioned as well, Dean, this idea of 3, or of being in a team. So I'm a single operator in my business. I run my business on my own. And I find it quite fascinating and challenging as a business owner, what you were saying about it's important to have a team around you to build success. And I can see that. If I look at other businesses, they're often more than one person who's making it happen. For people who are starting out business on their own, that might be quite a negative thing to hear. It's like, oh my goodness, I don't have mates, or I'm a lone wolf, or whatever the term is. How would you advise them to get around that, or to work through that? Do you think it's important for them to find a team and work with a team, or can they start on their own?
No, I mean, again, it's a great question, because I'm like, to a typical salesman, I'll try and convince you that what we have is the best. And if you don't have that, then what you doing? Like, what you doing? Like, but so yeah, so for instance, my sister-in-law was a brilliant jewelry designer, and she had a jewelry business. But I could see she struggled on the operation. I could see that she needed admin and finance. She needed to be creating and designing. But the business couldn't have sustained like a person financially. So I do think, first of all, you need to know what is your gift and really double down on your gift. And then find, if they're not going to be shareholders, then at least find a good accountant or someone and find people that suit your gift. So that's try and get if you can bring other gifts into your business, do that.
Yeah.
But there is definitely a dynamic if you can, again, the marketing sales. When you have co-owners, like it just, to make all decisions yourself and to carry this thing alone is hard. I mean, because it's business, ultimately you're carrying something. And you're the person that brings the energy. And a person that works for you is not going to be having the late night conversations. You're not going to be carrying it with you. And that's the challenge. So I think there are different ways of it. I think you can bring family members to people you can trust. I mean, not everyone's going to have 3 mates that you at varsity with, but I do think you should look for that.
One of the things that hasn't necessarily come through in this chat, but before we started recording, is that you guys have got a great sense of humor and you laugh a lot and you're able to perhaps laugh at one another. But how easy or how important is it rather to be able to laugh at yourself and the mistakes that you make or the successes that you make?
That's important. I mean, you got to be honest with yourself. I mean, we've all made bad decisions that have affected the business, which ultimately affects the people that work with us and our families. But I think it's the honesty to acknowledge where we've gone wrong and try and recover from it and see the lessons that we can learn from those decisions. You got to have a sense of humor. I just think it's important in life and in business. You can't take things too seriously. We count our blessings every day. We're very fortunate. We're not the smartest oak in the room, but we love what we do, and you got to make it enjoyable. I mean, you've got to, as you said earlier, about getting up to go to work every day. You've got to create that environment amongst the leadership group and amongst all of the staff where there is that vibe that makes it worth coming to work. I mean, people spend a third of their life at a certain point in their life being at work, and it's important to me that the people that work with us, it's a highlight of their day, not a drudge. And I think humor plays a big part in that.
Dean, what do you think the responsibility is of business in South Africa to, I mean, it comes back to that word that's been sticking in my head, this redeeming a particular space. But how do you think, how important is it, or what is the role rather of businesses in South Africa in redeeming the space in which they work to ensure continued economic growth in this country, to ensure the upliftment of people? What is our responsibility as business owners?
Sure, James.
I saved the big ones for last.
I think certain people are called to different things. Like people have different gifts, as we've been discussing. So whether you're a physiotherapist or a barista or a pet cremator or a banker or a teacher, you should be making the world a better place by using your God-given talents to do that. And there are many industries to redeem. There's the education, there's government, so I'm a big believer that speaking for South Africa, go and use your gifts to make the world a better place. Be the most excellent barista, be the most excellent physiotherapist. You know what I mean? And I think that's the responsibility. Just a news headline from yesterday, I see that the PSG Group has put in a 7 billion rand offer to buy Curo to make it a non-profit. And it seems to be a massive philanthropic move. If it is, it could be one of the greatest gifts to education in South Africa ever, So that's on the macro, big scale, big business. But I think the same thing applies to the hairdresser, the physiotherapist, and the barista,
What do you think, and this may be not an easy question to answer, but what do you think government can do to help small, medium SMMEs, businesses to thrive that they're not doing at the moment?
I just think, I mean, a lot of people said like regulation. I think you've got to deregulate a lot of things, but then the things that are regulated need to be regulated. I think there does need to be certain regulations to sort of level the playing field, but I think you need to let entrepreneurs run. I think you need to inspire them, give them opportunity, whether it's finance or inspiration or whatever. I just think that's going to be the salvation of the country. It's just young people taking advantage of opportunities and employing 2 or 3 people each. I don't think it's up to big business. And inspiration comes from government, and they need to inspire a nation. They need to keep everyone in the country. They need to keep everyone motivated. They need to create growth. Or they don't create growth. They need to create the environment
To create the
that
growth,
we can grow. We can't. We're not going to improve as a country unless we have stability, and that's what they should provide.
In one sentence, and I'll leave this for the marketing person because this is your game. In one sentence, what's the ultimate vision of Vet Booster for the future of pet care in South Africa? Because this is your new venture, which you're about to launch. One sentence, what's the vision for Vet Booster?
I would say to redeem an industry by recognizing that the veterinary industry is a gift, the best gift to help build a nation of responsible and rewarded pet owners.
Sorry, I threw you under the bus there a bit by giving you no time to think about that.
Yeah,
here's the thing. So
really
I'm going to give you a chance to think about that while I talk a bit, just to come back at it, because this whole idea of an elevator pitch for any business is quite a critical thing. It seems that I've learned over the years is to be able to clearly, and it's one of the most difficult things. So the fact that I'm sorry that I put you under that pressure, but it's like it is one of the most difficult things to do for somebody who studied English, okay, who should be good with words, to have that elevator pitch and say, this is the one thing that is the most important thing. So while you're thinking about that, do you think it's critical for any business to have, in terms of clear vision, a one-sentence thing, or do you think that that's a myth that, business leaders and motivational speakers use to kind of encourage you to buy their books?
No, I think you need to have a clear vision. I think that vision needs to be revisited and can be adjusted and changed from time to time. But you need clarity of thought. I think it's a danger to entrepreneurs that you try and think about too many things at one time, and then you actually get paralyzed by that. You need to have a clear vision.
So, Mark, what's your clear vision on Vet Booster?
It actually hasn't changed. We are building a nation of responsible and rewarded pet owners, and the vets are central to that.
Yeah. There you go. Brilliant. Yeah. Gentlemen, it's been an absolute privilege and pleasure chatting to you. I've learned so much about business, and you've actually challenged me about 2 things. One, which we haven't even dwelt on, but this idea of the responsibility of businesses to think about employing people. So I've always avoided that. I've rather gone with staffing up as a project has needed it. So that's a great challenge to businesses, is to consider employing 1 or 2 people full-time and being responsible for them. Having a clear vision, that's great. I love that. And also this idea of actually working in partnership. So Dave, Mark, Dean, thank you for your time. I wish you all the best of luck with your new venture, Vet Booster. I hope that your business continues to grow. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. And at least I know who was responsible for putting a chip in my dog so that I can find them when they run away. So it's been great. Thanks so much for your time. And don't forget, if you have enjoyed anything that you've seen and heard here, make sure that you share it. Share it with your friends, your family, your loved ones. Like it, subscribe to it, and continue to grow Mavericks with me. It's been a pleasure having you on board. Thanks so much. And, we weren't recording. No, we were recording.
Don't cut you. In the previous one, you were talking about the 70 grand. Yes, that was quite a nice, we can work in a quick question answer.
Sure. No, well, I mean, I steered clear of those questions to make sure that we didn't repeat ourselves, but we can do that. So, let's imagine we're still in the back of this.
How we got the initial funding.
Yeah. I'm just trying to see where. Okay. I want you, Dean, to cast your mind back to that first conversation where you go to your parents and you say, Mom, Dad, or whoever it was that you spoke to, we need money for this. How did that conversation pan out? And how did you raise that seed capital with them? How did you convince them to give you money? And I want you to share each of your experiences, but let's start with you, Dean.
Well, initially we wanted to avoid that, so we tried with the banks. That was an interesting exercise. And then we moved on to the Small Business Development Corporation of those days, the SBDC. And after a few months, we realized we butting our heads against a wall there as well. And so fortunately, I had a very entrepreneurial father, as I've said, who had done some risky things himself. And so he didn't really bat an eyelid at giving us some money. And fortunately, we managed to get 3 batches of 70,000 Rand, 70 plus 70 plus 70. And so this is a family-funded, parent-funded story.
30 years ago, 70 grand was a lot of money to stump up on what sounded like then a crazy idea. How did you convince your parents to stump up that amount of money?
Well, I think they just believed in the vision. They saw that we were serious at what we wanted to do. We had done a lot of research. We took our business plans to them. We showed them that there's a need, there's a demand. And they were very strict in the sense that they wanted their money back. So we repaid those loans.
I'm so glad you told me that.
Yeah,
because often people think, oh, well, here's the money, you can have it, go run and do what you want. But the fact that you were actually put under that stress to pay it back.
No, our fathers were business people, and you take the risk, go for it. But and we've all, before we started the business, we all had part-time jobs. So we knew all about working, saving,
spending.
Yeah, spending's the easiest way. As the salesperson in this trio, was it an easy convo with your folks?
Yeah.
Did you convince them in the same way that you convinced your clients?
I don't know, maybe my parents did see David as far more responsible than I was. Maybe it's a bit off piece here, but on finance and taking risk on finance, because it is such a real thing. And I don't know, Dave kind of mentioned it before, and I don't know when, but it's interesting with the Jewish people, like, why do they have so many successful businesses? One, because they believe in their children. But I can tell you, it's because if they fail, they can always go back home, and it's a safe place, and they back them. And I actually think that is honestly such, if you know that you almost can't fail, because you get out, you lose some cash, you've still got a home, you've still got people that back you. And I think that was the reality, is that I think our parents loved us, and you still had a home. We were young. And so really, I mean, go for it. Take the risk.
Let me tell you, you've kind of raised a thing that we can go down. You spoke about rabbit hole, but we can go down a rabbit hole with the idea of what we can learn from different cultures about how we run businesses. Yeah. I mean, there's so much collective wisdom from, you mentioned Jewish culture, African culture, even the idea of like how you share this. I mean, it's an oft used and a bit hackneyed phrase, but Ubuntu, of working together to build success. I mean, there are often drawbacks in that. But anyway, that's a whole new conversation. Let's move on with the other questions that I have.